So, have you ever, every time there's a problem that's happened, you always do something, and some people question, why you do that? And you don't know, maybe you do know, but it's the way you cope. You cope with troubling things. You can tell a lot by a person of how they cope when hard things come up in their life. I personally isolate myself. I don't talk to anyone, I just stay in my room, and a lot of people do that. And the easiest thing to do when reading someone is looking at how they cope and how they handle it. It tells a lot of how they grew up. Some people cope by spending a lot of money. Maybe their parents were well off, but they didn't have that much time for them or don't want to spend that much time with them. So they just spend money. I cope with isolating. So I grew up I grew up with people, not really promoting like an environment where you could easily tell what your thoughts are, easily tell what your problems are, what's troubling you. And it's more complex than that. Like, you isolate yourself and don't tell anything to anyone. That's a sign of you feel like a burden every time you tell your problem, because people say that your problems are like meh, they like pass it away, like, oh no, you have a problem? No. Look at the other kids in the street, or look at the kids who grew up in poverty. I'm not saying, you know, that's not true, but you are still invalidated in your feelings, no matter what, because feelings are still feelings at the end of the day. We are beings of emotion, we are emotional beings. Emotions come first before logic. You ask me, oh, that's not true. No, think about it. When we were infants, when we were born as babies, and as babies you only have emotion, and as you build up your conscious, you start having conscious decisions, so logic pops up. So we were all born in a state of just having emotion. So we are emotional beings first. And the thing about emotions is sometimes it doesn't make any sense at first, but at the start of you getting to know yourself, most of it is not going to make sense. It'll make sense at your journey of self development, self care, and self work. But understand that things don't make sense. And the good thing to do is find a healthy way to actually cope with things. Find a positive way of using that, you know, emotion that you have into something good, or like use it to get to know yourself more. Because as people, we cope, we try to find people who can understand us, who can we talk to and they just know you all the way, understand you. But to be honest with you, you're only gonna find people that you relate to a little bit. But at the end of the road, you're gonna find out that, oh, you don't know me completely, or you don't see me as who I really am. The problem is that that is mostly self reflecting, self projecting. You can never find someone who understands you until you understand yourself. Because we keep trying to find people who are like the last missing piece of the puzzle to actually finish our whole puzzle piece. But that's not how it works. You find the puzzle pieces. It's your job to figure out who you are, not anybody else's. And at some point in life, you're gonna find people who are the same in that self care journey. But as of right now, if you're not starting anywhere yet or barely started, you're not gonna find someone like that. Sure, you're gonna find things that you're gonna connect with them, but at the end of the day, you are two different people. Even though you have the same experiences and a little bit of same outcomes, there's still a difference between how you react to things, how you act and behave, of who you really are. So it's your job to understand all your points of yourself. And by first is realizing how you cope to things. It tells a lot about who you really are. It tells about is who are you running from? Like people always say, I'm fighting these demons. There's demons in my head. But the point is, those aren't really demons. I hate that term. You have demons that you need to fight. Because at the end of the day, the demons that you're fighting is that little kid who got traumatized and didn't know no better, who didn't know how to cope with these emotions and had these bad habits of coping. Like you cope with violence, you cope with bad substances, you cope with not saying shit or just negative and toxic overall. And that eventually led you to have more bad habits as you grow up. Those aren't demons. Those are just unresolved trauma. Those are just you running away from the problem again. And as you run away from it, no matter how much you run, no matter how fast you run, you'll always catch up to you. Because that part of your life is still yourself. Your past trauma, your past problems is still you. So it'll catch up no matter what. That's why you have demons in your head. It just means to tell you to, your child version of you, that past version of you that you blocked in your head, all the memories that you blocked because of the trauma you dealt with, that is just coming up and it means you want to be healed. You want to be free. You it wants you to feel the emotions and actually fix it. So, you know, child you, kid you can finally be happy for once. And we all deserve that kind of happiness. So, just try to learn more about yourself. With how you cope is one thing. There are tons of other things that you can easy pinpoint ways to know who you really are, but you got to start with how you cope. You got to be, because how you cope, it tells a lot about you. So you can read it from other people, but you got to read it from yourself. How you react to things, especially problems. Sometimes you push yourself to the limit to like fixing a problem that maybe that is your problem. When a problem pops up, you want to fix it right away. You want to control everything. That's another coping mechanism. Trying to keep everything in control, even the things that are out of your control. Because you want everything to be perfect, pitch perfect. You want to keep the happiness that you felt back then. You want to have it right now, which doesn't help also. So there are other ways that people cope, and you should be aware because sometimes that causes like miscommunication in relationships and friendships and family members and people you love. Some people misread the situation because how you cope, sometimes you are defensive because you lived in an environment where you always had to protect yourself. You always had to stand up for yourself. Like every day is either a physical battle or a psychological battle. That's why people from prison are kind of paranoid because they stayed in like an environment where they always had to keep one eye open when they're asleep. That goes the same from where you live. Like the psychological things, like people always questioning you, like pushing you, always saying that you did something wrong again. That is also part of coping. That defensive. I just gave you three, but there are a lot more, and you should be more observant about that to make you more at least kind or empathetic. You have to learn how people cope, and you need to learn why do they cope like that. And you need to have better coping habits, healthy habits. Maybe cope by singing, meditating, write a journal, find a stranger and talk to them. I don't trauma dump. And mostly what people do is trauma dump. And then when they trauma dump, they don't know if the person they're talking to is trustworthy or non judgmental. So what we do is just dump all of it in one place. Then we figure out like, oh, it's all done. No, it's a process. You dump it little by little. It's a practice. It's never a get rich quick, quick, get rich quick scheme. It takes time. So with coping, being aware about it, about yourself and about other people, actually really helps and actually gets to know more about people and more about yourself. So the word of today is coping, and hope you cope well with the things that make you feel like life is hard. This is Chris Killeen. See you in the next video. Bow, 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 bow.